Those of you who have been subscribed to me for quite a while or follow me on Twitter would know that I absolutely adore film. In fact, I actually create videos for another channel here on YouTube where people get to watch me gush about film. Some would say I even get to rant about screens. And this last year was a pretty great one for film. Sure, there were a few stinkers, I'm looking at you, Emoji Movie, but on the whole, there were more good films released than otherwise. So I figured that I should put out my own list of my favorite films from the last year, which is actually what you're watching right now in case you didn't read the title. And if you'd like to see more of this sort of content, let me know by clicking the subscribe button and then the little bell to join the notification squad and be alerted when I upload new videos, because that's apparently how YouTube works now. Now, I didn't see every film that was released in 2017, and there were definitely a few that I missed that I probably should have seen, like Ladybird, Call Me By Your Name, and Three Billboards. And I definitely intend to see those soon. But if I didn't see a film, it can't really be on this list. So if there's something that you think should have been here but isn't, it might be because of that. Now with that out of the way, let's get to it. Was The Last Jedi a perfect film? Hell no. In fact, I did a whole video on Screen Rant about the problems with it. Link in the cards to that, by the way. Parts of it just didn't flow right, and others just felt like they drug on for way too long. But I genuinely enjoyed it. It took what I loved about Star Wars films and did some really interesting stuff with it. Not to mention the fact that it did a lot of things that I just straight up did not expect. And there was one scene in the film that had me bawling like a baby. I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to spoil it for the like 3 of you who haven't seen it, but if you have seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. It was one of the most moving and just overall satisfying scenes of the entire year, and was well worth the cost of admission alone. And as far as the film overall, I definitely feel like it was a good time. Don't let all the hate that it's getting on the internet stop you from catching it. This was a movie that I honestly did not expect to like as much as I do. While I enjoyed director Edgar Wright's work for the most part, outside of Shaun of the Dead, none of them have really ever blown me away. So when my Star Wipe Lounge co-host Owen Poole took me to see Baby Driver, I wasn't really expecting much. Then I watched it, and holy crap did I have a great time. You know that term edge of your seat? It definitely applies to this one. The action is spectacular, with some of the best driving sequences ever put to film, rivaling those in 1968's Bullet. And the acting is nothing to sneeze at either. Ansel Elgort shines as Baby, giving us a performance that manages to feel deep and engaging without much dialogue. In my opinion, Jamie Foxx should never play anyone other than a villain, since he's absolutely terrifying in his role. And then there's Jon Hamm. Just wow, in a film full of great performances, Hamm manages to stand head and shoulders above them all. Sadly, I can't go into his performance too much without spoiling things, but just trust me when I tell you that I think that it is criminal how infrequently we see Hamm these days. For number 3, we have Real Hollywood Movie. That was a terrible impression. That just sounded Russian. I, for one, absolutely love the pile of flaming garbage that is The Room. It's one of those films that is so bad it's good, and for me personally, the fact that it even got made to begin with is pretty fascinating. And The Disaster Artist is the semi-fictionalized story of how Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero met and first produced the Citizen Kane of bad films. And it is an extremely well-made film. Funny and touching, James Franco managed to tell the story masterfully, with standout performances by Franco and his brother Dave Franco as Wiseau and Sestero, respectively. And I want to take a moment to specifically talk about Dave Franco here. Before this role, I never really considered him much of a dramatic performer, kind of just saw him as a bit of a dude bro. So it really surprised me when he busted out such a fantastic performance. I truly believed him as Sestero. The film might not be a major action-packed sort of picture, but it's definitely a good one that is well worth watching. Now I'm gonna start things off by saying that Blade Runner 2049 isn't exactly a film for everyone. It's slow and kind of just drags most of the time, but my God, it's a beautiful film. The original Blade Runner is often held up as a perfect example of the cyberpunk style, and 2049 continues that perfectly. It looks absolutely stunning, with an art style that seems to build upon the original film in a very realistic way. For instance, the technology that we see makes logical sense within the world that was established in the original, instead of giving us a future that would make sense with our current level of technology. They stick with the more pseudo-analog tech that we saw back in 1982, which makes it feel more in line with Blade Runner, more part of its world. And of course, I have to talk about the cinematography, which is absolutely awe-inspiring. There are shots in this film that are so beautiful that I left the theater completely flabbergasted. Never before has a film left me speechless, yet this film did exactly that. And I swear to God, if Roger Deakins does not win an Oscar for his work on this film as cinematographer, I'm gonna riot. I saw Logan back in March when it first came out, and at the time I knew that it was the best film I had seen in 2017 so far, but I totally expected it to get dethroned by something at some point just because of how early it did come out. And yet, here we are. Now, that's not a knock against the other films that came out in the year. As you've seen by the previous entries, there were some great ones. It's more a statement about Logan's overall quality. It took the idea of a superhero film and crammed it into a hardcore dramatic piece, taking a look at something that no comic book film had yet. What happens to a hero when their best days are behind them, and the world doesn't want anything to do with them? It's gritty, dark, and above all else depressing, but it's absolutely amazing. It was really the performances that elevated the whole thing above all the other films this year. Hugh Jackman was yet again astounding, proving that he was easily the best possible choice for Wolverine ever. Newcomer Daphne Keane delivered a noteworthy performance as Laura, Logan's clone daughter, and of course, who could forget about Sir Patrick Stewart? Stewart is often seen as somewhat of a nerd icon, and it's easy to just sort of lump him into that category. But this guy is a Shakespearean actor, and his turn as an older Professor Xavier, one who suffers from dementia and possibly even straight up Alzheimer's, is easily one of the best performances of the year, and quite possibly his best performance ever. Now, hopefully I'm not the only one who recognizes this, as to me, it's definitely an Oscar-worthy performance. So if you're a fan of cinema, I believe wholeheartedly that Logan is definitely worth checking out, as it is my #1 pick for 2017. And now that you've seen my list, be sure to let me know what your favorite films of 2017 were down in the comments. While you're down there, why not give the video a like and, consider subscribing? It's just right down there. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and have a good one.